All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sheriff David Sorencione with the Ontario County Sheriff's Office. Joining me here at the podium is Under Sheriff Michael Rago and Lieutenant John Kessel from our Road Patrol Division. We're here to give an update on a tragic incident that our office responded to with some other first responder agencies yesterday afternoon. And then I will take some questions, answer what we can for you, understanding that it's still an ongoing investigation and some things we don't have answers to yet. But at this point, we can share that on Thursday, April 4th, the Ontario County 911 Center received a call from Reuben Weaver of 5223 Blodgett Road in the town of Gorham, reporting that he had found his 13-year-old son, Jeremy, unresponsive in the creek on their property. Jeremy is spelled Jeromy. Mr. Weaver pulled Jeremy from the creek, then ran back to the house and called 911. He then returned to Jeremy, where he began CPR until the arrival of first responders. 2 sheriff's lieutenants and a sheriff's deputy were the first emergency responders on scene. They arrived within 7 minutes of the 911 call. Middlesex Ambulance and responders with the Rushville Fire Department were next on scene 5 minutes after the arrival of the sheriff's deputies. Advanced life support units from the Canandaigua Emergency Squad arrived at 2:18 p.m. and advanced life support efforts continued on scene for approximately 45 minutes before Jeremy was transported by ambulance to F.F. Thompson Hospital in Canandaigua. The medical team in the emergency department of F.F. Thompson Hospital worked relentlessly for over 90 minutes trying to revive Jeremy. Members of the Golisano Critical Care Team from Rochester even responded to Canandaigua and took part in assisting in this monumental effort at Thompson Hospital. Despite the efforts of over 24 first responders and hospital professionals, Jeremy passed away at 4:51 p.m. yesterday. To this point, our investigation has shown that Jeremy entered the creek behind his house. Once he was in the water, the current carried him for over a quarter mile west to where his father found him. We have learned that Jeremy was drawn to water and liked to play in and near the creek. Jeremy also suffered from epilepsy with current seizures. One possibility, though we do not know this to be a fact, is that Jeremy suffered a seizure and that caused him to fall into the creek. Per the order of Ontario County Coroner Tom Cheney, Jeremy was transported to Geneva General Hospital for an autopsy. As of this time, we do not have any results from that autopsy. Under Sheriff Rago and I were at the hospital yesterday while life-saving measures were ongoing. We spoke with those who responded to the scene and later met with Jeremy's parents, offering whatever assistance the Sheriff's Office could provide them during this most difficult time. I can tell you firsthand that this tragic loss is felt very deeply by all who responded and all who took part in this incident in trying to save this little boy. The Undersheriff and I offer our most heartfelt thanks to all of the first responders and hospital staff who did everything right and without hesitation to save Jeremy. They are truly heroes for what they do every day to serve and protect this community. The Ontario County Sheriff's Office Wellness Doctor is on site today, speaking with our members and helping them work through their emotions after such a difficult call. As first responders, I can tell you there are no more difficult calls for us than tragedies involving children. Jeremy, his parents Reuben and Miriam, and siblings are members of our local Mennonite community in the Gorham area. Jeremy attended Meadowview School on Phelps Road in the town of Gorham, and the thoughts and prayers of all members of the Ontario County Sheriff's Office remain with Jeremy's family and community during this most difficult time. With that, I'll take questions.
You say this fell into a creek, but he was swept away, obviously with the recent rain, so is this creek higher and running faster than,
Yes.
than usual? Was that a part
Yes,
of
the
this?
creek is running very swiftly where he was found. So yeah, that played a role in how far he was taken once he fell in.
You said he was drawn to water, so was this a creek that he regularly went into then and played in, and then just
Yes,
this happened? Yeah.
yes.
What is the name of the creek and roughly how deep was it?
I don't,
For lack of a better term?
yeah, I don't have, it runs into the West River, right, Lieutenant?
Yes. It
Um,
connects to the West River and flows down.
Yeah, and it's on their property. Was not very deep, foot and a half, but again, strong current.
Was he alone when he went into the creek?
Yes, he was.
And, you know, in speaking to the parents, is that something you regularly do alone as well?
Yes, I mean, where, the entrance to the creek was not far from the house, so he was not far and he wasn't gone for long. It was less than 20 minutes from when they last saw him outside playing near the house to when they last lost sight of him. His father immediately went looking for him and then, was running through the property, and that's where he found him a little ways away in the creek.
With epilepsy, are there any other mental disabilities or neurological conditions that Jeremy had that you could comment on at this point?
Not that I'm aware of.
In a tragedy like this, we sort of knew that there was going to be excessive rain. There had been warnings that there was possible flooding. Maybe a word to possibly, maybe a caution in the future for folks, just making sure that they're aware of what's going on, especially if they have a creek going through their property or.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we would urge people who live near water, as you've mentioned, it's running because we've had so much rain. The natural bodies of water are running a lot swifter than they do at times. And a word of caution to anybody who lives near water to, make sure your children are aware of that, keep an eye on them. And I mean, I say that, but I also say, here's a 13-year-old boy that lives out in the country on a farm. This is his normal terrain, his normal surroundings. And so for him to be a day off from school, be outside playing, and wander down near the creek, again, we don't know yesterday for sure that he intended to enter the creek. There's a possibility that he was stricken with a medical event, and that caused him to fall and slide into the water. We'll probably never know that.
Yeah, you said that his father lost sight of him. How long was he in there before he went looking? Do you know?
Approximately 20 minutes.
For your officers that come onto this scene and see, you say that it's the most tragic thing that you can see when a tragedy befalls a child. How your officers, it's got to be tough for them.
Yeah, and that's why the undersheriff and I went to the hospital yesterday to check on our officers that responded to this. And, it's not just the police officers, it's the firefighters, it's the EMTs and paramedics that worked this case too. And for an hour and a half, as difficult as it was, they stood vigil outside the trauma room at F.F. Thompson Emergency Room while doctors and nurses, respiratory care, did everything they could to attempt to revive this young man. And, as difficult as it is, they just didn't want to walk away. They were a part of this. They own it. We all wanted the best outcome possible. It wasn't to be. But yeah, when the final word comes that the doctor has declared the victim deceased, it's difficult for everybody that responds and works these cases, and police officers are no exception. And that's why our wellness doctor is, reaching out to each and every member from here today.
Have you been in contact with his school to see what maybe they're planning on doing on Monday when the kids come back to school?
No, we haven't. We've been in contact with his parents again today. Offered that assistance. We'll check in with them again, and anything that we can do that they're willing to have us be a part of, we'll do it.
I wanted to go back to some of those life-saving efforts. I mean, you mentioned 45 minutes when the advance team arrived and then another 90 minutes at the hospital. Anything you can share about what those efforts look like? I mean, how do you go about trying to resuscitate someone who had drowned? I mean, anything you can share about those
Yes,
efforts?
sure, yes. So, first of all, if there's any question about why were they on scene for 45 minutes, within 15 minutes you had paramedics on scene. They're the highest level pre-hospital care people there are. In fact, the story you read about Dr. Glick from FF Thompson Emergency Department joining our office as a part-time deputy, he was on duty with us yesterday. He also responded to the scene. So you've got paramedics and a medical doctor on scene. What they're able to do in those first 20 to 30 minutes on scene are the same things that you would do in the hospital. Intubate the patient, get a airway directly into their lungs to take over breathing, start an IV, begin delivering fluids, drugs to attempt to restart the heart, warming the body. All that stuff was going on right on scene, and it's actually more beneficial to start that and do as much of it as you can on scene rather than just scoop the patient and drive the 15 minutes to the hospital before initiating that. And then we were told by the medical staff at Thompson yesterday that, the protocol is to continue to work a drowning victim until you get their core body temperature back up to near normal. And naturally, Jeremy was in some very cold water for 20 minutes and his body and core temperatures had dropped. What they were exactly when he arrived at the emergency room, I don't know, but I know that they were lowered significantly.
You mentioned you spoke to the family. How are they doing?
Well, I guess as well as can be expected for losing a son. They have several other children. There was definitely a difference from when they were in the family waiting room while life-saving efforts were continuing to when they were told the final news and brought back to be with him. It was devastating. So our thoughts and prayers are with them, and they certainly are surrounded by a lot of support in their community today, thankfully, because they need it. But it's going to be a hard road going forward for them.
Is this a pretty well-known family in the community? Are you familiar with them before this?
We were not familiar with them before this, but they're in a very rural part, almost down towards the Yates County line, and for us to not be familiar with a family is not always a bad thing. But no, we hadn't been familiar with them before yesterday. Anything else? All right.
Can you say the name of the school again? Or do you have
Meadowview.
a press release going?
Well, I can actually, if you folks want, I have like a 2.5 page. I'll give it to each one of you if you want it, with the remarks I started with.
Was that a middle school then he was in?
It's a Mennonite school, so they
I
take
see.
all
Okay.
grades. It's like a community school, yep. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. We appreciate it.